Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
With nearly 2,000 employees and contractors, the 3 BASF sites in Louisiana invest nearly $300 million in our state through payroll, purchases, taxes, and charitable contributions. BASF in Louisiana is committed to being an exemplary community partner and a great place to work. Tom Yura, Senior Vice President and General Manager of BASF Geismar, joins us when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
In Baton Rouge, see your Good Neighbor State Farm agent Brady Flavin for your insurance and financial needs.
For over a quarter century, Kelly's has operated with honesty, integrity, and above all, safety. Kelly's features a fleet of quality equipment operated by dedicated, safety-minded employees skilled in land clearing, above-ground right-of-way maintenance, vegetation control, station yard and manned facility maintenance, above-ground pipeline support, and more. Kelly's Industrial Services, where pipeline right-of-way maintenance gets done right.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Very pleased to welcome my friend, BASF Geismar's Senior Vice President and General Manager, Tom Yura. Tom, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Great to be here.
Glad you are here. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to get into state government and business taxes and all of those things as we go along, deficits. But we always like to start off with a little personal interest. Tell us who Tom Yura is, your background, your work history, your family.
Sure. So my name is Tom Yura, Senior Vice President and General Manager for BASF Geismar site. Proud to be here in Baton Rouge now for going on 7 years. Wow. Spent time traveling the world, Texas, Europe, Antwerp, a little bit of time here and there, but really found calling Baton Rouge home. Great place. From a family perspective, married my high school sweetheart. So yes, that still works out there. We celebrated 26 years this past December. 2 wonderful kids, 17-year-old daughter Rachel and my great son Christopher just turned 13. So of course, you know, from a parent perspective, now we're shifting to the teenage years, which is a whole new set of challenges.
Well, you and I ought to sit down and talk. My kids are now 23, 22, and 19. I can give you some life lessons that what they say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. I'm blessed. I've got great kids too, so that's not an issue. Let's talk about your duties. What is it that the Senior Vice President and General Manager at BASF Geismar is responsible for?
Sure, so it's a great title, but the best analogy is I'm the mayor of a small town, right? We've got everything from infrastructure, we have roads, we have electricity, we have water. There's all those pieces that have to manage. We got tax bills, which we have to pay. We've got raw materials coming in. We have finished goods coming out. We have over 1,500 BASF employees and contractors alone just on the Geismar plant site. So everything and anything from safety compliance, environmental compliance, how do we meet our customers' needs? All of those things, right, which go on in our small city, we have to make sure that they go great, that we meet our customers' demands, that we're good stewards to the community. So 1,000 moving parts, and my job is to go ahead, and I can't do them, right? You got to have extraordinary people to do it, and I'm so blessed with having an incredible team of people. But a lot of keep going at one time.
I think that description, that analogy of being the mayor of a small city is pretty apt. I had not heard that before, but I think you're right. So let's talk about BASF Geismar. It is not just a major player in Ascension Parish. It is not just a major player in the greater Baton Rouge area or the Louisiana economy. It generally is an important part of the economy of the United States. Talk about what the site looks like, and we're going to get into the products that you produce there as well.
Sure. So specifically with Geismar, we got over 2,500 acres. So a lot of land, 24 different manufacturing facilities, and when you look at us, we're about $4 billion, $4.3 billion of assets on the ground. So it's a tremendous infrastructure. And so for us, it's not only about the products we produce, but it's also about how we integrate in our community. How do we become thought leaders, and actually where we work, right? Where we work and where we live, we have to be part of the leadership in our community as well.
You are an important part of not just the economy, but of the community as well. And you've got Jolynn Stein and Blythe LaMonica, some folks that do a really great job for you out in the community. But the truth of the matter is, and they would say it as well, is that Tom Yura really is the chief community officer as well. And you enjoy your interaction with the community, don't you? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, for me, there's nothing better than how, as a steward, right, a steward of the company, how do we make an impact, a positive impact to the communities that we live and work, both from an economic impact to being stewards of the people that come in and out every day, to how can we really drive the economic impact of the state. And I think, you know, that's what you talked about. We've got over $200 million in payroll every year. We spend around $270 million per year in the state alone. 82 million of that is just in Ascension Parish. And so a tremendous economic impact, let alone the charitable contributions and time that we give.
Our good friend, our common friend Dan Bornay likes to talk about the multiplier effect that industry has. And you talk about 2,000 jobs at BASF in the state as a whole, you know, both employees and contractors. The spin-off effect in terms of the economy and the spend just in Ascension Parish, as you mentioned, you know, 70 plus $80 million in Ascension Parish alone is tremendous, and it is a key driver of what takes place there, right?
No, absolutely. And so when you even look at some of the statistics around that, if you look at not only my site, but the other sites in Ascension Parish, we go and we provide around 56% of the property tax.
56%
we pay 60% of the property tax that's collected in the parish. So that provides exceptional public schools. It provides for infrastructure and other things, and helps really be that economic engine in the parish, let alone the 21 million in taxes that we pay every year.
I want to talk about your engagement and the site's engagement in education at a lot of levels a little bit later in the show. But one of the things that I've had the great pleasure of doing in my career for the last 25 years is work closely with the petrochemical and refining industries on public affairs. And one of the things I know is critical is that we do a better job constantly of explaining the products that the industry provides and how they impact our daily lives. Those of us who don't work in industry might drive by these plants and see stacks and gates and equipment and guards and not understand clearly how they impact us daily. Talk about the products at BASF Geismar.
No, it's great, because a lot of the products that we produce are not something that you're going to go to a grocery store or a hardware store and physically buy a BASF product. But when you're working in your yard all day, and of course the flowers are out, and so when you want to fertilize your yard, or you want to go ahead and get those pesky bugs, the products that we provide and we make at Geismar actually go into those products that you use. And then when you're walking around and you've got your shoes and you got your boots on, the nice insulation in your shoes, we make that stuff. And then at the end of the day, after you've had a hard day out, if you're sitting down and drinking that Corona beer, we help the filtration of that. Or in fact, now it's time to do your laundry, who do you think makes the active ingredient that goes into the Tide drop-ins? So if you look at it, we're part of that entire cycle of everything that touches people's daily lives, and a lot of those products come right out of our Geismar, Louisiana site.
The old BASF tagline that said, we don't make a lot of the products you buy, but we make a lot of the products you buy better, is actually accurate.
Sure.
We got about 15 seconds left in this segment, and I want to come back from the break and really talk about your engagement at education at a lot of levels. I want to talk about your engagement in some of these infrastructure projects that are going on, and this whole idea of crisis, and we'll explain what that is when we come back. We're visiting with Tom Yura. He is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of BASF Geismar. and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Spadel's Florist was founded over 30 years ago. From my mom's kitchen, we have grown into one of the largest florists in this area. There's a sense in our community that you stick together, good times or bad, and oil and gas is part of that family. They're my neighbors, they're my customers, they're the person I'm sitting next to at church. If oil and gas is doing well, all of our businesses are doing well. We are Louisiana Oil and Gas.
For more than 25 years, the TJC Group has been helping industry communicate and build relationships with communities, elected officials, and governmental agencies. We are the leading firm in the U.S. for the development, management, and facilitation of industry-based community advisory panels.
Whether you're building a new facility or you manage an existing business, let us put our community and governmental relations experience to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
It might be one of the most efficient, most effective methods of communications we've ever used.
What if I said that the American dream is alive and well, and that it exists for anyone willing to build it? That the power of a nation does not reside in its monuments, but in the hearts and minds of those who built them, and that the country's greatest heroes also wear hard hats. In today's America, it's not enough to dream about the future. You have to build it. Build your future at byf.org.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Tom Yura of BASF is our guest. Tom, we talked a little bit about the products. We talked about your engagement in the community. We talked about the fact that you sort of act as a mayor of a little town out there. In fact, it's not really a little town by some, stretch. Sure. You've got an extra 1,500 people or so on your site in the middle of a big turnaround right now. So a full site, a lot of responsibilities. But just like any organization, you face challenges.
Sure.
Talk about some of the greatest challenges faced by BASF and what you and your team are doing to address those.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting time. If you look at the general global economy, if you look at oil, gas prices, where they're at and the effects that it's having with the industry, there are some very, very, very tough economic questions that we're having to face at this moment. If I look at one of the longer term challenges that we're facing, and I think doing an exceptional job, it's workforce development. I'm extraordinarily proud of the cooperation between industry, our educational institutions, the state, the Department of Education over these last couple of years to really identify some critical needs. We have a workforce that wants to retire. Right? So who are the next people coming in? How do we get that training? How do we motivate kids and people to love STEM? The science, technology, education, engineering, and math.
Right.
How to really get involved and do this and be those next great employees. So, working with school districts like Ascension Parish School District.
Great public school districts.
Oh, absolutely. And Patrice, and embracing legislative changes like we saw the legislature do last year with Jumpstart. Right. And really helping bringing technical education back in. I really feel for the first time in a long time, we've aligned all the pieces of how to inspire kids at an early age to get involved in science industries and get them to be ready to step in and get great jobs.
One of the things that we've done across the country, and I think we are beginning to do, and certainly been really focused on it in the state of Louisiana, is this whole idea that while we never want to discourage anyone from going to the four-year university if that's their goal and that's what they want to do, what we've come to recognize is that only about 30% of the jobs that exist in Louisiana's economy require a four-year college degree. Now, almost every job requires training and education post-high school.
Sure.
But we're doing a much better job training at high school. One of the things I want to talk about a little bit is this great relationship that you and BASF have had with the River Parishes Community College. Dr. Dale Doty, Dr. Bruce Wagaspak, doing great work there. You've helped raise money for them. They've built a beautiful new campus in Gonzales, and they're building this beautiful new technical center. Talk about the importance of the River Parish Community College to your operation and how you see it addressing these workforce needs.
Sure, and I think you hit on a great example. And it started with conversation. It started with Dr. Doty sitting down and saying, Tom, what do you need? What does BASF need to be successful? It's not, here's what we have. Take it. And so it started with that conversation, and so we're engaged with River Parishes Community College. They came in and they asked us what we needed, and so that kind of partnership gets you excited. It allows us to go ahead and donate $100,000 to help build that great new technical campus. It allows us to donate equipment, to put together a small operating unit to train people who will eventually be coming in. That's the kind of public-private partnership that I'm excited to get involved with, and a real model for us to move forward.
You talk about these issues of workforce, and one of the things I know that's critically important to BASF and really industry as a whole is to do everything they can to employ locally. But what we know is that we've got to have qualified people, right?
Sure.
We can't hire someone who's significantly less qualified because of their geography. So this effort to help individuals that live in the Geismar community be more prepared to compete for the jobs is really what River Parishes is focused on as well.
Oh, absolutely, and it starts from that early age, from fourth graders to going to LASM and seeing and experience BASF Kids Lab, to us hosting the Tech Academy,
Right.
which was the first time also working with River Parishes to get 11th graders and 12th graders inspired, and hey, maybe I ought to do that after school. So it's all coming together from those young age all the way to people ready to enter the workforce.
Great careers are available. So let's switch gears to another one of the challenges that I know industry faces in the state. You are heavily involved and are a driving force for an organization called CRISIS. That's the Capital Region Industry for Sustainable Infrastructure Solutions, a real mouthful. Talk about your work there and why it's important to industry that we solve some of these traffic and infrastructure problems in our state.
Well, I think the one thing that we can all agree on is the traffic that we have in the Baton Rouge and the capital area region is horrible. Whether you look at the stats and see that we're the third worst congested city, to how long it takes to get from the West Bank to the East Bank and back and forth on the Mississippi River. I can have all the great qualified folks wanting to come to work, but if it takes them an hour and a half to get there, they're going to get frustrated, and over time they'll move someplace else. So getting together, aligning our priorities,
Right.
and as a capital area region, going fact-based, these are the bigger projects that are going to make the biggest impact, reduce the time for people to get to work. It seems logical. It really does. But we all have to get in the same boat. And I know we can do it because we've done it with workforce and education. We've all got to get together, from public officials to industry to the public, get behind the solutions, fact-based solutions, data-driven solutions that we're suggesting. Find ways to fund, which is always that huge issue. But if we don't make steps to improve it, our kids and our grandkids are the ones that are going to suffer more than we do.
You know, and for you specifically, this whole mess that is Louisiana Highway 30 has to be improved. I saw Congressman Garrett Graves speak a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things he said is that the reason the Capital Region hasn't taken more advantage of the old time program is because we never could agree, and that's what CRISIS is trying to do for us. Got to take a break. We come back, I want to jump into these legislative issues. Taxes on businesses are going up in our state as a result of the special session that just was completed a week or so ago. And we know in the middle of this regular session now that well, at least in a special session that might be called after this regular session, that we face additional taxes as well. We're visiting with Tom Yura. He is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of BASF Geismar, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
For more than 20 years, the TJC Group has been helping companies assess their training needs and to develop programs that improve the effectiveness and productivity of their teams.
Training doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. Let us put our experience and expertise to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
It might be one of the most efficient, most effective methods of communications we've ever used.
Tim Johnson here for Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. With some of the most knowledgeable and hardest working medical professionals in Louisiana and 8 convenient locations in Greater Baton Rouge, Gulf Coast provides injury management, physical exams, medical surveillance, and substance abuse testing. Once you know the folks at Gulf Coast, you'll realize they are your best option to protect your safety record and your bottom line. Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. Ride the wave to safety.
What if I said that whatever good things you build you? And that in this economy, sweat never loses its value. What if I said that there isn't a challenge in the world too great for a craft professional with the right tools, and that the steps that lead from where you are to where you want to be can only be built by you? Build your future at byf.org.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Good conversation with Tom Yura. He's the Senior Vice President and General Manager of BASF Geismar. So we, as we tape here, we finished the Louisiana special legislative session. We are a week or so into now the 2016 regular session of the Louisiana legislature. It was a contentious special session. It's going to be a tough regular session. What we know is that taxes on businesses are going up. I think industry said from the beginning, Tom, we are willing to share in the sacrifice to fix these issues. There are some who feel like that too much of the emphasis and too much of the focus was put on the business community. Let's talk about some of the taxes that were raised. You guys had enjoyed over the last few years an exemption on the sales tax you pay on business utilities. That was critically important to driving investment. You enjoyed an exemption on the sales tax that would otherwise be paid on manufacturing machinery and equipment, MM&E as we call it. Right. Let's talk about those two taxes specifically and the impact that they could have on industry and a site like BASF Geismar.
Sure. Well, I mean, any time taxes raise like that amount, it can have a dramatic impact. I think, part of the discussion I've heard too before is, do you pay, how much do you pay, et cetera, and if I look at even just our tax burden alone in 2015, we paid over $21 million in taxes, both state and local to be exact. So when you look at the reason why some of those exemptions are even in place, whether it's the business utilities or the MM&E, it is about being competitive. Right. If you look at the state of Texas, if you look at the state of Mississippi, which are right to the right of us, those are incentives that states use to bring business in so that the spending, right, on sales tax, on raw materials, on personnel, and everything else that you do actually comes in and stays there. And this has been used as a very effective political and incentive, right? Very, very, very good incentive to bring industry in. And part of the issue is over the last couple of years, you've seen an influx of billions in commitments and new installations coming in. And part of the concern you have is you come in under the expectation of one tax structure, and then once you land, all of a sudden you have a very different...
Something changes,
Something changes. And you may say, what difference does a penny make? Well, if you're spending $200 million a year, a penny adds up to a whole lot of money.
1% is a lot of money. And most of these companies and most of these firms that are investing are spending significantly more than that. And you mentioned it. BASF is a global organization. It's got operations all over the world. Sure. It can place new investment anywhere it chooses to and is generally going to do or place that investment and create those jobs where it believes it can get the greatest return. And if we're changing the rules and we're creating a situation where you don't feel like there is stability, that's going to impact those decisions for not just BASF, but a lot of companies.
No, I mean, you hit on a keyword, stability, right? With oil prices falling, with the global economy not, going great, kind of slow. Stability, lack thereof, causes delays. You've already seen it. There are a number of projects, large-scale projects within the chemical community, which have been slowed down or stopped. Same thing with the oil. So the last thing you want to do is add even more uncertainty. And also to pick up what you said, as a mayor of a small town, I'm also the advocate, right? I've got to be the Geismar site's advocate. I want to bring investment. I want to grow. I want to bring more jobs. And as you said, that Lawrence Galt multiplier of 8 to 9, right? Additional jobs for every permanent job created, that brings great economic growth and prosperity. But I compete against not only other states, but other regions for the investments. So I have to go to my board of directors. I have to go ahead and say, listen, we have the best package to compete against other areas. This is why you should bring it into Louisiana. And if I start getting handicapped, like I'm getting handicapped more and more, it makes my arguments a whole lot less. And I get a concern about how does that economic growth move forward.
Listen, industry came to the table early on and said, we understand the problem that exists in our state. We understand how severe these budget deficits are. We are willing to do our part to support it. But it looks like now that all of the exemptions you had, plus on the sales tax, particularly utilities and MME, and now this extra penny that has been added, at least briefly, are going to impact you. And they do cause companies to step back and say, is this the right place for us to put this investment? I know you're concerned about that.
Oh, absolutely. It always makes you consider, because you look at the cost of doing business anywhere. It's the exact reason why these incentives were put into place to begin with. It's why other states are doing the exact same thing to draw business in. And so I've already had to communicate to the businesses represented on our plant site that you will be paying more money this year. Money that I can't spend on new investment, money that I can't spend on hiring. And as you mentioned, growing revenue is one thing, but in industry, if we face tougher economic times, we also have to get tighter. We look at how do we get better? How do we look at our work processes? How can we optimize and drive continuous improvement? And we don't mind sharing, but we expect to see the same thing.
We got about 30 seconds left, so bring it back to your community involvement. BASF wants to be a good neighbor, has been a good neighbor, has been a good corporate citizen. You're going to continue to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, we strive to be a great corporate citizen in the areas that we operate, right? From adding economic value to improving the overall quality of life. This is where I work. This is where I live. This is where my family's growing up.
It's your community too.
It's my community. I want everything here to be fantastic and great for my kids, and that's why I spend time on improving traffic, on improving educational systems, and getting involved in the discussions. We want to be, and we will be, a great thought leader and a great participant.
I get to work with a lot of industry, and BASF is a real leader when it comes to engagement from your level and all of your team. Tom Yura, thanks for your time today, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
We'll have you back on sometime soon to talk about this more. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.